Go 50. All right, you guys ready?
Sweet.
Yep.
Yes.
All right. Hello, everyone. Alex JeDaily again. This is the fourth episode of the JeDaily Show. Tonight's going to be a very special episode. We're just going to jump right into it. All things Guilty Gear. There's been a lot of hype recently because of Guilty Gear Excerpt. Is that how we say it?
I guess
Excerpt.
so.
Yes, that is the pronunciation from the trailer. So I brought on three very special guests that have been a part of Guilty Gear since the early days. We were discussing, I think the first Guilty Gear ever came out, around 1998, 1999. When it first came out, was it a Japan-only release, or was it released here as well?
When the first Guilty Gear was actually PlayStation 1 release.
Yep.
It wasn't even arcade yet.
Yeah.
Nice. So, okay. Let's see. So, all right. First, I'm going to start off introducing my guest. On my video screen, you can see this is Alex Sakarakis from Orlando, Florida. He is actually a EVO Top 8 finisher 2009
Yep.
in Guilty Gear. So, who knocked you out?
I lost to Latif, and then I had to play Marn.
Oh, so Latif and Marn, believe it or not, Marn was good one day.
Yeah, he got second that year.
And he got second in Guilty Gear, so Martin did come from the Guilty Gear crowd before he went esports on us, and now he's back with us, or trying to at least. And then my first guest, you all know him. He is the founder of Broken Tier, but also a huge Guilty Gear advocate. You can always find him tweeting that he's playing more Guilty Gear, no matter what. So how are you doing tonight, Paul?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you doing?
Doing good, man. Thanks for coming on. I was really excited to do the show because I've always been a fan of Guilty Gear, especially the soundtrack. It's one of my favorites, and I'll get to all the songs that people said were their favorites from the game. But, when I first got into the whole scene playing CVS2 and stuff, T-Sac over here was alongside with Flash Metroid. They were always playing Guilty Gear, and we had M-Song, I'm sure you've heard of. I just never really had time to really get into it because I was too busy with CVS2. But great game, and I'm excited for Excerpt. I really want to help that community, so that's why we're doing this. And then our third guest, he's been across the pond to Japan, actually played in some Japanese arcades in Tokyo with Guilty Gear, so he comes from two sides of the world in the Guilty Gear community. How are you doing tonight, Minus?
Hey, what's going on, guys?
Good. Where are you now? You're back in the States?
Yeah, right now I'm back in New York City, hometown, in Queens.
Nice. When was the last time you were in Japan?
I came back in July of 2012, and I was there for a year studying. I had school over there, so I took the opportunity to mesh with all the fighting game community crowds, and got to get a unique perspective on how the Japanese scene operates. It was a really great experience.
Nice. How different was schooling over there compared to here?
Well, since it was university, so it was not too much big of a difference. The only thing I could say is Japanese students, when it comes to more debate group setting, they don't really participate as it's not going to get as heated in a discussion as it would in an American university. That's the only big difference. But everything else, pretty much your standard university flair.
Very cool, very cool. Well, welcome back to the States. I'm dying to go to Japan one day. Have you been there yet, T-Sac? No, none of us. So
I'm making a plan soon.
yeah, I'll manage T-Sac when he qualifies into SBO if it comes back with Guilty Gear Excerpt. So, but today we're going to talk about everything about Guilty Gear. First off, I'm going to ask each of you, what is your first memory of Guilty Gear, and did you play other fighting games before it? And if you did, what game was that? And then how did you bridge yourself into Guilty Gear? Kugi, we'll start with you.
Oh man, my story. So, my absolute first time seeing Guilty Gear was X. I just got into fighting games 2 weeks before this. I was playing CVS2 and Marvel at the arcade, and I asked my friend, how do I get the games? And he's like, oh, just buy it off eBay. So I bought CVS2 for $5, and I got a burned disc, and I put it on my Dreamcast, and it was Guilty Gear X, and I was like, what is this? What the hell is this? So I load up training mode, and I pick Chip, and I do crouching heavy and then jumping S over and over again because I didn't put on tech. And I was like, this game's stupid. It's broken. I just found an infinite in 3 seconds. I'm too godlike. And I never thought about Guilty Gear after that for 2 years or so. And then my friend Reno Rob and JP from Reno, they had Guilty Gear XX just come out for America. Or Japan, I don't remember which, and he was doing Venom combos in training mode, and I was like, this is sick. And there was a video that you could find on, I don't know where they got it, but it basically showed all the tech for each character, and it was 5 minutes long for each character, and I saw Slayer, and he had roll cancels, back then. He had 22 frame invincible specials, and I was like, this is the greatest game ever made. So there you go. That's my story.
Nice. You know, it's funny. I actually CVS2 was the first game I ever bought. It was at FYE, and it was like $20, and I had a gift card there from a birthday present. And I saw it. I was like, oh, I haven't played since Super Turbo and Mortal Kombat 2. Why don't I pick it up? And then I picked King and like some crappy characters, and I had no idea there was a scene. That was actually my intro into the FGC. So that's funny that CVS2 was your game as well. What about you, Minus? What got you into all this?
Well, initially I was a Chinatown Fair scrub, and I actually met the New York City MVC2 players, especially those from Queens, like Liston, Prince of India, Josh Wigfall, Michael Devonish, Mike D, and we all had our own basically, FGC house.
Hello?
Yeah, sorry about that.
Oh, that was your story?
No, no, and then actually I was alone in knowing about Guilty Gear. It was Guilty Gear X. I knew about it for Dreamcast, and I actually got my friends to actually try it out, but I was the only one who was really taking it seriously because New York City was like king of CVS2, king of Third Strike, king of whatever, MVC2 definitely, but I was the only lone Guilty Gear player. But I just kept playing and playing, and eventually the scene just kept growing and growing until it got to majors, and I was placing in majors, and then myself, Flash Metroid, and Alex G actually teamed up in 2006 for Evo, and we ended up taking third in Evo, and that was a great experience, and I think a great time for Guilty Gear when we had that team tournament, and you can see all the character diversity and how the team dynamics in Guilty Gear actually work out considering the matchups. And it was great. That was basically where I came from. Came from Marvel. I still play Marvel 2, Marvel 3 to this day, but Guilty Gear is my baby. So
that's cool. What about you, Mr. T-Sack?
I didn't really start taking fighting games seriously until probably about 2003, 2004, and I played XX back in the day, but just for fun, and my roommate would just beat the crap out of me with Soul. And I'll be like, I'm going to play Chip. And I'm like, no. And I'm like, I'll play Johnny. And then I'm like, why is he throwing money? I'm so confused. And, my friend got me into the Naruto game on GameCube. And we always used to, hang out and have a bunch of people.
Which one?
I think it was the one.
One?
And, we'd always used to, go out and drink and have a good time. And then, a bunch of us would just get back together and just play the Naruto game just because it was, a fun party fighting game. But I started getting decent at it, so I just randomly went to some tournament, and then I saw people playing Guilty Gear. I was like, oh my gosh, and I was watching it played at a pretty decent level, and I just had a conversation. He's my good friend now ever since that, my boy Jason, and he got me a copy of Reload and got me into it basically ever since then. I really got serious with it basically right as Slash was starting, but it was great. The diversity in it, and actually seeing that Faust could do combos and things like that was great. So I'm not as old school as these other two guys. So
better late than never, man. It's still a great game that, especially with Plus R, and I think we're all waiting for the PSN version on the US network to come over. I know T-Sac got the Japanese version, and you can get on your Vita, but I'm not a pad player or a portable player anyways, so it's pretty hard to play it the right way. But are you guys excited for Excerpt coming back?
I think so. But first and foremost, it's great to have a new Guilty Gear on the horizon, but having Plus R in my hands after a whole year, I went to the first initial load test in Japan, and then after that, it was just basically withdrawal for a year. And getting my hands on it and actually getting to play, with my crew in tournament this past weekend is just an amazing feeling. So I'm definitely excited for Plus R, but definitely more excited, just to flesh out what I have in front of me right now.
Very cool. And as we're talking, I'm loading up the best moments video, and you can see Daigo is at the beginning of this video. And a lot of us play Street Fighter mostly because of Daigo video, the Parry video in 2004, especially if you're an 09er, no offense. But, I used to watch Street Fighter 4 when it came back out. It was a 5-year hiatus for me, and just watching all his videos. Back in the day when the game was on its early release, who was like the most well-known top player in the entire world for Guilty Gear? And, like, who was the most feared player in the United States and then in Japan on a totally separate level?
Okay, so in Japan, I think that in XX, it was Washige, who played Milia. And I don't know if Ogawa was around in XX, but basically it just became Ogawa. It was like Ogawa the game in Reload.
Reload, yeah.
And he played Eddie, and he just invented the most ridiculous stuff you've ever seen. I mean, it was disgusting. It ruined the game, but it was awesome, at the same time, because he's so... I think there's legends of him bringing notebooks to arcades, and he would just write notes on everybody. He was like the original Infiltration. Then in Slash, there was a player named K2 or Connie, and he played Jam.
Oh my God.
That Jam, and it was so ridiculous. I mean, he invented this one setup that he used at SBO, and I have this moment burned into my brain. And the setup is now it's pretty common. It's instant air dash over the person, and you do uppercut kick in the air. And if you do it perfectly, there's a momentum thing in Guilty Gear. If you're in the air and you do an air dash and you cancel into a special, some characters fall. So Jam is one of them. She does basically an instant cross-up uppercut kick that launches you in the air and then does like 50 or 60%.
Yeah.
And the moment he does this in the video, the announcer starts screaming at the top of his lungs. And me and my friends we drop our sodas. And we're just like, this is disgusting. Like, this is so sick. Because Jam is already in your face nonstop with standing low. And then now she does an instant cross-up overhead.
Yeah. What made it worse was in Slash. Jam was actually a nerfed character. Like they totally destroyed her like crouching slash or 2 slash. They took away all like a lot of combos and setups that she had, and then like Connie just came out of nowhere with this character who everybody thought was gonna get slept on for the entire like Slash like iteration and destroyed everybody. He basically only lost once, I think, the entire SBO tournament.
Yep.
And then OCV'd everything else. Like, it was ridiculous.
Yeah, what he did that year at SBO, like, that was super dominating. Like, as far as, like, what K2 did.
So, and then in Accent Core, Ogawa, again, was, like, the king for a while. And then I think towards the end it was Eno, or Eno Toko, who is a Venom player. He's the king of Venom. And I don't know if he necessarily, like, won everything, but overall, I mean, Washige, who won the first one, was always good. There's always, like, a character specialist that just... Like Rue, Bridget is like one of the most amazing things you'll ever see, and each of these people just brings an amazing dynamic to the game. So they could all win tournaments, or FAB Potemkin, or any of these really dominant players. So in America, it was kind of the same thing. I always felt that there was like you couldn't pick one of the best players; you could pick one of 5. And if any of those 5 were at a tournament, they would probably win, or it would be a shuffle of who would take it, and it would be like Flash. Latif towards the end, Marn towards the beginning, and then
Alex G.
Juicy G, too.
Alex G. Alex G. Was
Alex G. Q.
Darwin, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Q from Nebraska. Yeah.
Marlon Pye for a while, I think, did really
definitely.
well.
And Alex G used to play Marvel too a lot too. When I was getting to the first tournaments in Florida, he was always winning Marvel. When we had Mike Mix up as well, Mixon, he was playing that too. And I think when's the first time I met you, T-Sac? Do you remember?
Oh, the first time you said hi to me, I guess, is when you saw me on stage at EVO, I think. You're like, I didn't know you got all the way over here.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I was trying to, take a claim for anybody from Florida then, too. No, that was before I started organizing, so I went there just to compete. So, yeah, that's right. That was the first time, and then we hung out. We've been good friends ever since, man. We're going out for drinks later. So what else? All right, so those were the players, and... Now, in America, so that top 5 you listed to me throughout the years has pretty much been the most dominant 5.
I mean, it always changed in each game because the games, there was like 2 years between each one. So, like, I could go through XX to Accent.
You want to go by game? Yeah.
Because it was really, like, diverse. Like, in XX, you had the SoCal guys with the team run. You had Saif, Chaotic Blue. You had Vegas was really strong. You had Ruin and Peter Sue. NorCal, oh gosh, he wasn't good in NorCal. There's like a couple players I think in NorCal. There's like, those are the West Coast guys. East Coast, you had I don't actually remember East Coast back then. There was like heated rivalries back then.
Yeah, back then it was just
Toyette, I think, was one of the guys.
Yeah, Toyette was theirs. Myself, Marlon Pie was kind of young, but he was coming up. Who else did you have? You had James, aka Jamie Austin. There was, a lot of guys from Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh in XX was really one of the, the original, Guilty Gear scenes
Did Josh
on the East Coast. Briefly, and not that I remember to like that degree.
And
then you had
remember a biking player over on the East Coast that was really good too. Kuni, was that American?
No, Kuni's Japanese, but we did that. There was
okay.
From Ohio. You had
Midwest was crazy back then too.
Yeah.
You had AKA, you had the Serious Crew guys.
Definitely.
Man, those guys are still around. Destin, you had Kenji.
Kenji's really good.
Final Showdown
from Maryland. Yeah, Final Showdown was from Ohio.
Had Jan even played back then too, didn't he?
Yeah, he definitely does.
Texas.
He still plays.
He's still good. He's still godlike. And then who else? Stone from Louisiana. Man, I mean, I could go on for days. There's so many players that were like really dominant back then. But
are most of them still around? And if they're not, do you think they'll come back with Excerpt?
A lot of them are still around.
Yeah, a lot of them revived. Some of them moved on to other games, but everybody still plays Guilty Gear.
Yeah.
So once Plus R was announced, everybody who was an OG, their Twitters blew up. Like, oh my God, Guilty Gear, I'm finally back. Yeah, everybody never left.
Now let me ask you guys. Let's go back in time to around between 2001 2003. Today we have Blaze Blue, we have Personas now out. So there's a lot of competition that are these games are quality games. They're not obviously as big as Guilty Gear used to be. But back then, besides the obvious Capcom games, Marvel, CVS2, Third Strike, Guilty Gear was always up there. It was always mentioned alongside. Were there any other anime games or visual novel fighters that were as big as Guilty Gear, or that was the cream of the crop, the only one that people played?
Well, back then there was no such thing as an anime fighter.
Yeah.
First of all, it was just Guilty Gear, and Guilty Gear was just Guilty Gear, and Arxis wasn't really.
I'm sorry. What? Did you stop?
Sorry, guys. Arxis wasn't really known for anything but Guilty Gear. So
there were no other games, were there?
No, not anything that was as anime centric as Guilty Gear.
I mean, you had back then they called it poverty games. Those were the foundations of like Melty Blood and some of these other games that you saw a very small scene for them, and they slowly grew. And then when Melty Blood got an arcade release with, I think it's called React. I'm not 100% sure. So sorry, Melty Blood guys, but the game started to really pick up. And then there was Acredenza and a bunch of the other releases in Japan over time, and the anime scene, quote unquote, really became the dominant one in Japan. You had Arcana Heart come out of nowhere. You had I think those are pretty much the primary anime games. Yeah,
definitely. Those three, I think, really what put that anime air dash genre on the map in Japan.
Yeah.
Nice. Let's talk. All right, so let me go to a first question. We can talk about characters because obviously there has been a lot of iterations of Guilty Gear over the years. How big of a difference is the new Guilty Gear Plus compared to the last patch? Because it seems like I was, when they patched it, Flash Metroid was talking about how he felt he had to relearn the whole game again. Were there a lot of changes to where it felt fresh, but you still, if you had the basics of Guilty Gear, you were okay?
I think it depended on what your character was, who your character was.
Are you still playing your same character post patch?
Definitely. Well, my character kind of got slight buffs, more buffs in movement and the way that she plays. I play Ino, so Ino's known as pure rushdown and some minor zoning to get her game started. But in this iteration, they gave her more movement options with like double air dash and the ability to be able to poke somewhat. She's not really known as a poking character, but she has some traps in the corner. She has some ways to just get ridiculous amounts of damage and force characters to make bad situations that she didn't really control that spectrum of the game before, and it's just really, really fun. And for Ino, you don't have to relearn combos. It's basically you add more to the combos you're already doing. just based off of the extra options he gets. But some characters were totally drastically changed, and basically like what Flash said, learning your character all over again, like Jam, Testament, May to some extent. Like some characters are totally revamped.
Yeah, definitely. I think the hardest hit person is probably Testament. I mean, his entire game is I mean, it's the same game, but the mechanics behind the way that his EX beasts work is totally different. And he got a bunch of weird moves, and he's just like, he feels like a brand new character to me. I think the person least affected by it would probably be like someone like Soul. I mean, it's hard to say because even Soul got a bunch of changes that made him better mid range. But a Soul player could go in and be like, okay, I do the same thing I've always done since Accent Core. I just go in there and punch people in the face when my fist is on fire, and they bounce off the wall. And there's a lot of interesting changes where one of the problems with Accent Core, in my opinion, was that there was a lot of really easy damage for no effort and no risk. So characters like Slayer, for example, who was one of my main back then, is if he hit you with a crouching light kick that had you couldn't punish it or anything like that, he could probably get 60% damage every time if he had 25% meter. He also had like just a bunch of ridiculous attacks. And Jam is another guilty person where you do like EX or Force Break Puffball, and it's safe on block. God. If you get hit by it on counter hit, you're dizzy and you're dead. I mean, you've just lost the game pretty much guaranteed against someone like Flash. May had a lot of ridiculous damage, and Eddie is the worst though. Eddie in that game was just, oh man. Yeah. He had a 3-hit drill that filled the entire screen and put you in block stun, set up easy unblockables. It ruined the neutral. You could never get away from Eddie truly in that game.
Nice. Out of all the versions of Guilty Gear, have instant kills ever been good or useful?
Only situationally, like against Abba, just because of her blood pack glitch, I guess. When she get knocked down 3 times, she's forced into a wake-up animation. And certain characters that had a really quick instant kill activation, like Kai or Jam, could really take advantage of it. So it made the matchup just terrible. Instead of like trying to come up with some type of game plan against her, it's like I just got to knock her down 3 times and that's about it. So
yeah, mostly you saw it mostly you saw it from like Slayer or Jam if actually got someone dizzy, which is a lot easier for them to do than other characters. They had quick like instant kill activations and they can just like go in. All Zappa as well. Yeah, Zappa had combos that was like guaranteed dizzy. You would know when the dizzy's coming and you just cancel into instant kill and like put the ring on them, then that was it. But yeah, it's not really a mechanic that you see too often, except like if you saw like against ABBA.
There's certain versions of the instant kills were a lot more prevalent. So in XX, Eddie, Slayer. I mean, Slayer in XX had the bite infinite, and it would dizzy you after 10 bites and 2 pile bunkers, and you'd immediately roam and cancel a second pile bunker, and then cancel an instant kill activation, and then do instant kill. There's no way out of it. Jam has a fast enough startup if she dizzies someone that she can do it. May also can do it. She has a command grab one though, and it basically is if the character gets a cheap or a fast dizzy and can roam and cancel the last hit, and they know that there's like a combo that's just going to dizzy someone, they can just roam and cancel the last hit, go an instant kill and kill you, and there's nothing you can really do. But it's not that common.
Got it. How have you guys always felt like about Robokind? Was there any version of Guilty Gear that had banned characters in history?
Sort of. There was console exclusive characters, which were Cliff and Justice, and they were not. I mean, it's not necessarily that they were broken, even though I think Justice was, but it's that they weren't intended to be in the game. And EX characters are also in the game, so they had I guess Arxis gets bored or something, and they just decide to make different versions of the characters, completely different. And they do weird stuff, like Johnny suddenly becomes a counter character, and whatever. Point being is that those are banned. You can't play those in tournaments. In the new version, obviously Cliff and Justice are legal because they were balanced against the rest of the cast, and they're pretty cool additions, honestly.
Nice. Now, I was talking before we started the show. We were talking about how many versions of Guilty Gear, and by fighting game standards, Capcom's always been known to have the most versions or updates to their single games. Guilty Gear's been pretty much more or less around the same. Have there been true sequels?
Once the XX series started, it's just really more like revamping and stuff and just adding on mechanics.
Okay, so obviously Street Fighter's had the most in series, but I mean, I'm looking at it right. If you go to Twitch when you're hosting a channel and you type in Guilty Gear to show what game you're playing, let me read off all the Guilty Gear games that it has. There's Guilty Gear 2 Overture, Guilty Gear Dust Strikers, Guilty Gear Asuka. That was the 4-player one, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That's the best game ever made.
Turnaround button.
Guilty Gear Judgment, Guilty Gear Petite, Guilty Gear Petite 2. What the hell? Is that just the French version?
No, it's the it was a
chibi?
portable Neo Geo game or something, some random thing.
Really?
I think
Dude,
they're
you
all
know
like
that
chibi
CVS2
characters,
game
I
was
think,
pretty good.
maybe.
The portable CVS2 game for the Neo Geo color. Let me see. Then there's Guilty Gear X, Guilty Gear X Plus, Guilty Gear X2, Guilty Gear XX #reload, Guilty Gear XX slash.
Did you just really call it #reload?
Yeah.
Holy crap! That's amazing.
I'm just saying okay, sorry. Guilty Gear XX #reload. Is that better?
No, you're fine. Don't worry about it.
I know, I'm kidding. And then Guilty Gear XX Accent Core, and then now Guilty Gear XX Plus. Did I miss any?
No, well,
Dude.
plus R.
Plus R.
Oh,
Excerpt.
and then Plus R. This doesn't even have Plus R yet. My God. So
Yeah,
there's been a lot
they're
of
lagging.
iterations. So if besides obviously Excerpt, because I know they are toning it down, everyone's trying to go the Street Fighter 4 route, for the most part at least. If somebody had to pick a Guilty Gear now, would XR Plus be the best one to go jump
Plus
into?
R?
I'm sorry, Plus
Plus
R be
R.
the one, or can they play a previous one and get the basics down?
Would I even recommend that? I mean,
No. Okay, so here's the deal with Excerpt, in my opinion. It's like they looked at XX and they're like, wow, this game is pretty simple, but we added a bunch of stuff over time that's gotten really, really complicated. And they're trying to basically start at a clean slate. They're going back to X style where things are a little bit simpler, but they're putting in like some of the changes that they've made over time. And they're trying to standardize a lot of these ridiculous things that they've added, like false roaming cancels and instant jump installs and blah, blah, blah. So I think that's what they're trying to do, is make it a little bit more accessible, but keep Guilty Gear the same.
Right, and I was reading when the creator, I don't know his name, I apologize, was talking about he wants to get
Ishiwatari
wants to get as many people playing it as possible, and when he said that, I'm like, please put it on current gen systems. It seems they're going to put it on a next gen system, but I personally think if it was on current Xbox 360 and PS3, it would definitely draw people. It's going to be hard, especially with like Killer Instinct coming out day one. It's going to be hard it's a huge investment. $500 for the system. Right now, Mad Catz will have the new stick coming out to market. That'll probably be around $200. So you're looking at like $750 to get invested into a new fighting game on a next gen. How hopeful are you guys they'll bring it out to current gen systems?
I really hope they do.
Yeah, that would be great.
Is there a petition we can sign? Like, I would love to see that. So, because Exert's looking really good. I'll jump into the trail. Although I'm fascinated by this best moments of Guilty Gear right now. To be honest with you, so
FD canceling normals. Yeah, that's great.
oh yeah.
Now let me ask you. I know T-Sax placed top 8 at Evo. Didn't you recently, Paul, get like second place at a tournament?
I won Summer Jam.
The entrance.
I think 18 or 19.
That's still a win, man.
It's a win.
What was it like feeling? Because I remember you were tweeting how nervous you were, and you really wanted to win.
Dude, I forgot how cold tournament rooms are when you're playing in tournament. Like your hands get so cold. I haven't felt that in a long time because I'm just so casual with the games now. I'll play casuals and I don't care if I win or lose or I'll be drinking. But when you're actually nervous, it's really a crazy feeling again. I forgot what that felt like. So it was cool. It reminded me. I was getting my my ass whooped pretty bad towards the end, and I had to really relax and focus, and it was like a very unique feeling because I've transitioned to a business person now. I don't really play games, so it was. I mean, I've obviously used to play games all the time, but it was cool.
What was the first shirt you ever designed that got you into selling shirts within the FGC or wherever you did come from before?
I started selling shirts in the FGC. I made a shirt design which was all right. So I made a shirt that was the Blaze Blue logo, but instead of it saying Blaze Blue, it said Broken because I didn't like Blaze Blue. I just made the graphic for fun, and I was like, man, I really want to make a T-shirt, and so that was the shirt that got me into making T-shirts. But I made another one which was the Obey referenced AHVB shirt.
Nice.
Yeah.
So, now, I did ask earlier on Twitter, what was everyone's favorite Guilty Gear song of all time? Let me load it up now. Majority of it was... shoot, I gotta load up the name. Everyone can say it in the chat for me real quick. Let's see. Momentary Life was up there.
Oh, he's serious.
Yeah, I know, right?
Which one is that?
That's Bridget.
That's Bridget's.
That's
It's
Bridget.
Bridget.
Oh,
dude.
what?
The hell is their problem?
That's not my
Oh,
favorite theme
come
song,
on.
guys. And then, I've always liked the Guilty Gear soundtrack. Honestly, I every time I was at tournaments with CVS2, all I'd hear in the background was like, Heaven or Hell! Like, in the background, just going on.
You actually kind of sound like the announcer when you do that.
Oh, really? Thank you. I'm
Just a
actually
little
doing the
bit.
Excerpt. I couldn't announce it yet. So,
Oh,
Practice
okay.
that.
yeah, no. But yeah, everyone was recommending the Korean OST. What were your favorite
Definitely.
songs? Paul, what was yours?
My favorite song is probably. I would actually. This is so stupid. It's the Korean OST for Reload, and it's Johnny's song, and it's such a stupid song because it's totally goofball. But I was rocking out to that this morning, so I'm just gonna go with that. I don't even know what it's called. I have no idea what that song is called.
What about you, Minus?
Definitely the Korean OST is one of my favorites, but I would have to say ABBA's Iska song is freaking ridiculous. I'm trying to find the name of it right now. Jesus Christ, somebody help me.
It escapes me right now.
Let's rock. What other noises?
Oh, Quicksilver, yeah, there you go. Thanks, guys.
Nice. I always love my chats, man. It's not a huge crowd, but everyone's very informative and stuff. If you look on the soundtracks on YouTube, I'm looking at Guilty Gear XX Eddie's Zatu 1 theme, which has sounded similar over the games. I remember that clearly. 20,000 views, man, so that's pretty good for soundtracks. Guilty Gear, honestly, personally, besides Street Fighter's memorable ones from the original series, I've always felt Guilty Gear has the best soundtrack of any game, fighting game at least. KOF's recent one has been really good, but and Tekken.
You know what? Hold up. I'm gonna retract what I said. Maze Stage, Blue Water, Blue Skies. That song is godlike.
There's been so many remixes, and they're all
Dude, just the
amazing.
XX one. Just the XX one. All day. I can listen to that song all day.
I really like. I like Venom's. I think it's a Solitude of Venom's is good, and I like Order Souls as well.
Oh yeah, this is a classic.
Yeah, that one.
I don't know if you guys can hear it, but Blue Water, Blue Sky is a good one. I don't remember Faust, though. Do you ever have one?
The original.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that song. That song's pretty cool. it's a totally goofy song.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk to Minus for a second. You were over in Japan.
Yeah.
In comparison to playing here and over there, how different was it? And was it a learning experience? Did you get bopped and learn, or were you just like, shit, I want to go back to America?
Initially, I did get bopped, but the thing about Japan, most of my time was spent playing in Mikado and Takadanobaba, which is in Tokyo, and that place is like the holy grail of Guilty Gear. Like literally, you go on the second floor, and you look to the right side of the arcade, and it's literally like 20 head-to-head cabs of just Guilty Gear, and there's always one cab that's streaming, and there's always people to play, no matter what time of the day you're there. And just being in that kind of situation and getting your ass handed to you I was there for a year, and it took me at least 3-4 months before I began to consistently get wins or any kind of streaks. It was so satisfying. But the thing is, when you first go to an arcade, it's kind of daunting because people who know each other, they know each other and they speak. But when it comes to Japanese people, everybody's not as outgoing as it would be in an American situation. So you kind of have to ease your way into it, or somebody who introduces you to other players, and then you start to kind of form relationships with these other players and get a chance to exchange ideas, technology, and things like that. And once you get into that swing of things, it really starts to open up, and then you start to learn a lot about their mentality and how they approach the game. And one thing that me and my friends that we talked about, the Team Stickbug crew, when it came to Guilty Gear, and not just Guilty Gear but other games in general, is when in America a lot of people just play to win. or they find this, that they find tech, they watch match videos, and they do combos, and then they try to find some matchup experience, and then they just try to win. But when I was in Japan, everybody was just, they weren't concerned about their wins, they were just concerned about improving. And it didn't matter who you were playing against. There was no real like rivals, like, oh, I hate this kid, or like, that kid's a scrub, or he freaking sucks, I don't even want to play him. There was nothing like that. None of the drama that goes on, in our circles in America. But it was just more of everybody playing Guilty Gear, getting something to eat, going back to the arcade and just playing more Guilty Gear, and then the whole time we're just exchanging strategies and learning from each other. It was just, how can you improve? And no matter who you were, even if you were the lowest level scrub in the arcade, if you walked up to like any high level Guilty Gear player that frequented Mikado, like if you like, I got to just walk up to Koichi, like freaking God, and just ask him for advice out of the blue. He had no idea who the hell I was in the beginning, but just be able to just approach him like that, and him to share all of the tech to a random stranger, just give the tech away and say, hey, you should do this, you do this. Like once you establish like a relationship or a repertoire, then they'll watch your matches, they critique you when they play against you, or they see you playing somebody else, and you don't have to ask for it anymore, and it just becomes like a camaraderie. And these guys are like really, really cool, and thankfully I still keep in contact with them with Twitter, Facebook, and it was just a really, really great experience. And that's what we try to do in our community in New York City, and Team Stickbug, like Team Stickbug's all over the place now, but that's what we try to do. We get together, we have tournaments, we have casuals, we go out to eat, we exchange strats, talk strategy, talk about how we can improve as players, critique whether it's positive or negative. And I think that coming from Japan and having that perspective, and coming to America and seeing not only the Guilty Gear community, but also the Capcom community be able, like, starting to do the same thing, sharing their tech, being active on our forums and like media outlets, and I think it's really, really cool. And that's one of the reasons why I think you've seen like the current shift of skill level with the West, like, as in comparison to the East, where you have like Evo Top 8 with Americans, and being just completely international. It's no longer Japan dominating everything, but it's completely international. And that's because a lot of all over the world has kind of taken up the same kind of mentality when it comes to how we approach these games, and not just playing to win, but playing to improve yourself as a player. And you see all these players that come out of nowhere and they're dominating people, and then they're bopping all these like named players, and it's because everybody shares the tech and everybody shares their experiences with each other, and I think it's really great.
And it's coming down to not learning the matchups anymore, it's just learning your opponents.
Exactly.
So
that's how you approach it.
Hey Chaz, who over there, like, out of all the really good players, like, who impressed you the most over there, and like why? Like, what did you see as like a big difference to like a good Japanese player and then like that other level?
Man, that's hard. I wouldn't even say it was in Guilty Gear. I would say it was like in BlazBlue. Like I met Akira. He's like one of the best takers on the planet, and like he actually played Guilty Gear. He played like a freaking awesome Potemkin, but you just never see him in tournaments. But he just focused on BlazBlue. But the way he approached the game, even though he played Tager as one of the worst characters, and he was able to formulate, know the matchup, but also learn how to adapt on the fly and to read your opponent, and at the same time, being a leader in his community, running tournaments, like volunteering his time for tournaments that he didn't even compete in. Like he would come to the arcade and run tournaments as like there was intermediate tournaments. There was like tournaments for female players only, tournaments for intermediate players only, and tournaments for everybody. And he would come to these other tournaments and help run them just for the community, and just be there as like a symbol of like, hey, like I'm doing this for you guys, and everybody looked up to him. So I think like he impressed me probably the most out of everybody that I kind of met in Japan.
Cool.
Nice.
Very nice.
Now let's go back to comparing Guilty Gear with the current games, which the big ones are BlazBlue and Persona. Why do you think those haven't... Like, Persona's been doing pretty well. In my opinion, it's a great game. It has all the fundamentals of a good fighting game. I really enjoyed it. I played a little bit of Chie. Just, I'm too busy organizing now to focus on anything other than just Street Fighter, and now Dive Kick. Like, why do you think BlazBlue never became as popular, first off? And then how do you feel about Persona, especially with a sequel coming out and their community kind of growing pretty well? Like you were saying, you don't like BlazBlue. Why don't you like it, Kugi?
Oh, well, all right. So that comes from being a stubborn old man and playing Guilty Gear forever and ever and ever. And then you go and you play a load of BlazBlue, and unfortunately, the first character I pick in BlazBlue is Tager. And in the first version of BlazBlue, Tager was so bad that there were matchups where you literally just lost. Like, there was absolutely no way you could win, which were like Carl with his clap loops, or V13 or Rachel. And I mean, it just discouraged me because I was like, here I am, a pretty good Guilty Gear player, I'd like to think. And I go into this game and I'm just like, man, my first character that I find that I really like is, garbage. So then Hakumen gets unlocked. And I'm like, oh, dude, this dude does huge damage. He's got a big sword. I'm in there. Second worst character in the game. And I'm like, I hate this game.
Wasn't Bang like the best character?
No, that was the second version, Bang and Lychee. But the first version, V13, Rachel, and Arakune were like just
and
completely.
Carl.
Carl. Oh my god.
He was so strong.
Okay, so basically the game comes out, it's broken. It's just, in my opinion, it's one of the worst fighting games ever made. So then I'm like, all right, I watched this game, I'm just not going to play it. This was around the time I was getting out of fighting games because Guilty Gear was getting less and less entrants. It stopped being a featured game at EVO, and I was like, well, time to pack it up and be a family man. And then CT came out, or not CT, the next version with Hazama and the other character.
Yes.
And
yeah.
I played it a little bit, but I just couldn't get back into it. I didn't have a scene in Reno either, and I mean, I think that's primarily it. So I hated it for really ridiculous reasons. Why I think it didn't do as well in America compared to Guilty Gear, I think it's as popular as Guilty Gear was, personally. I think the online community for it is really popular. It's just that in America, like, Guilty Gear just has a lot of longevity because you have a lot of old school players that have been around forever, going to these tournaments, hanging out with their friends, and they formed communities before online was around. Mm-hmm. So the bonds are a lot stronger. Like, I don't think I've actually ever met Chaz, but I know him, and if I see him in a tournament, like, I'm going to have some fucking war stories to tell him. Oh, sorry. But you know what I mean? So it's like, that's kind of the thing with BlazBlue. I don't know if that's necessarily the same feeling, but I don't know.
Fair enough. No, agreed. So, as an organizer, we try to support whatever games people show up for. And, I still what was the last tournament? Last November, I think, I did a side Guilty Gear tournament. They took over a corner, and you guys were at it for the whole day.
Yeah, it was fun.
So, I think, 18 entrants or so?
Yeah.
So,
yep.
I'm excited. Like, I would love to host Plus R again. Just there's so many games, like, from an organizer's perspective. And I was previewing, and I was actually getting interest personally. This isn't really an announcement, but I'm really interested in doing an all Guilty Gear, Persona, BlazBlue, Arcana Heart, Melty Blood, Chaos Code's also coming. Like, this fall is a really big year for quote-unquote anime fighters. A lot of them are coming over from, Japan all the way over to here. How do you guys feel about having, like, a what was it, Kawaii Effort Orlando?
Oh my god.
I know, right? I would never call it that, don't worry. But do you think, like, could there be a successful standalone tournament in America just for these games? Because I know the Northeast has a really huge community. Summer Jam, he's always, Biggie and his events have always had a great crowd for those games, but it's always a part of, like, Capcom games. Do you think there's room for an event based on just these games without Capcom, without other games? What do you think?
Without Capcom, I really can't say so. I just think that for the fighting game community right now to fraction itself off, even if it's in good spirits, just to highlight certain specific games, will kind of be a risky mistake. Just for the fact that you have so many people spread out across this country, and how literally, like, looking over the past entrants for all these tournaments that do feature these games, like, how many are you actually going to pull? Like, are you going to fill a venue with just air dash / anime fighters? Like, I really don't think that's going to happen. I mean, are some tournaments, like you said, like Biggie does a great job of highlighting these tournaments, and there's Elven Shadow does a great job coming from Japan every year, and Faustings in Chicago, and I think those tournaments really, really, put Air Dash fighters like in the spotlight and do a great job of doing it and promoting it. But at the same time, for there to be like a quote unquote anime Evo, I don't I don't think it's going to happen without other genres yet. At least until maybe Excerpt comes on. If Excerpt just destroys everything that is currently out there,
Right.
then we can start talking about something like that.
Right. I mean, I've been honestly considering, because I have a great venue that fits 500 people easily. That's near my my huge venue every year, but it's a very low risk event, and Florida has a really big community. For me personally, I'll be honest, if 150 people showed up, the event would be a success and break even. Because I'm trying to do a low cost event, but I would love to highlight these games because Florida's always had that big community. But for me, it's hard to fit more than one or two of these games at an actual like CEO where I have to pick 7-8 games tops. So that's why I've been considering it. Just I think it would be fun just to give it a shot, because I'm not really risking anything. If nobody shows up, but I lose $1,000 and say, hey, we tried at least, because you don't know till you try at least. But yeah, that's why I've been gathering interest from players, and I'm probably going to go through with it. Now is just trying to find the right time to do it. And if nobody shows up from out of state, that's fine. My opinion is if you have a strong local community, you can always build off of that. But it's one of those things where if it happened, no matter who did it, the first year, I don't think everybody would trust or believe in the chance of it. But if they saw that a first time went well, then I think it could build up. Just like the first CEO, nobody came, but it built up after that. So I'd like to see it happen. I think there's enough room for it to try to do that. But you never know until it actually happens. Oh, you can even do offline Catherine matches. Man, if Catherine had an online, man, those tournaments would be huge.
But I think like one thing that is positive, like what was it, October, November, right before NEC, we had the first Guilty Gear high stakes, and that was when Guilty Gear first came out on PSN and Xbox Live Arcade, and that was a great success. Like people came from all over the Eastern Seaboard and even the Midwest, like Chicago as far. And
I can't believe Black Snake drove.
Black Snake drove
He's a
freaking
nut.
16, 18 hours for Guilty Gear high stakes, and we had like old school veterans like Drew Loken come out of the woodwork. Destin, no, he got bopped, but like, shout out to my boy Black Snake. But in all seriousness, it was a great event, and we got to see a lot of people who we haven't seen in the scene, in years and years, and that felt like Guilty Gear again. And just last week we had Team Stickbug, it was streamed by Team Spooky last weekend, and it felt like old school Guilty Gear, and it was amazing. And literally, if that happens, Alex, like, and you can make it feel that way, I think people will show up.
I can
for
make
that.
it feel any way you want it to.
I think that, contrary to what Chaz thinks, I don't think it actually will divide the community. There's plenty of room for, like,
we already
distinct
have 100 events, yeah.
I mean, seriously, there's a major every week. Like, what's another one going to hurt? Especially one that's focused. Like, a lot of the anime guys, at least some of the old school guys, they don't go to EVO because it's expensive. And they would love to have an event where all their friends are going to show up to. And yeah, you're right, it's not going to be the biggest event, but having an event that just focuses specifically on this one thing could be successful. It's just that you have to define what your success is. It's not going to be 1,000 people, or I mean, maybe not first time. Maybe it's only 100 people. Maybe just having a small event is okay. I mean, we used to have small events all the time back in the day. It's just that because we see Capcom games being huge, we're like, oh my gosh, if I don't hit 1,000 people, then it's a failure. So, but that's just my take on it. Dealing with tournaments and being a sponsor and all this other stuff. It's kind of an old school style event.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, it's a low risk for me. That's why I want to give it a shot, because I actually have my next 2-day events in November, and I'm not attempting to try to make 2 big CEOs every year, but it's just for Florida, basically. And my one-day Florida events, TSAC will attest to it, get like 300 people just for a one-day, like 8-game tournament. And so November, I have this great new venue. that they were going to turn over into a Radisson brand, but they're keeping this name Allure Resort. They dropped the Radisson for the franchising, and the pricing went down on it. It's a great hotel. I don't know how, so success to most organizers with an event at a big hotel is filling up hotel rooms. If you can hit that goal, you're not losing money. For me, that's when I personally host CEO, my goal is to just make sure it's a great event, everybody has a great time. But in terms of financially a success, as soon as I hit that requirement to fill the hotel where I know I'm not going to be paying a penalty, that's when I know I'm like, okay, event's a success, now focus on the event. Something like this, whatever title we come up with, I just want to see another community get what it deserves. And I know like Big E's doing the Filthy Cup for Tekken. And Tekken, man, their community, they've been fighting with each other. Every community fights with each other, but the numbers have not been as big as we expected for Tekken Tag 2. But I just think with an anime-only event, you've got at least 5 games you can host. And even if people don't enter them, they're still going to, if they enter one game, they're probably going to enter another one just for fun. So that's the goal of it. That's what I'm trying to do, and hopefully it's going to happen. When I have a goal in mind, I want to do it. So just keep an eye out, and I'm going to reach out to Stickbug, Karushi, all the right people, because it's always the right. If you have the right people involved that people trust, it can't go wrong.
I just want to point out in the stream chat, was it Annie Frank and I'm So Free, they're talking about some things that could be kind of cool. They're talking about having instead of Capcom exhibitions at the main Road to Evil events, you have a Guilty exhibition or something to highlight these up and coming games that people have interest in. They state they have interest in, but they just need that extra push to actually get themselves into training mode. And I think if you had at NEC, you have a Guilty exhibition, you handpick the best Guilty Gear players, and you just run a first to 5 or something, or whatever it is, and I think that would be pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, it is tough though. Somebody said, just why don't you do it at for example, CEO? Why don't you just have one of those games be bigger? I'm like, it's all about the community that turns out. If you have 300 people show up for Street Fighter and you only have 30 people show up for another game, you have to obviously put more resources into Street Fighter. That's just how it works. So if you try something new with these other games, and then if a lot of people show up, then you go, okay, there is something special here. Build off of it. If nobody shows up, then you're just like, all right, that's how it's always been. Just seeing the smaller communities. But like I said, Florida has a really big Air Dashers community, so that's why I want to do it, and they'll support me. And again, it's not a huge risk for me, and it's a great location. Koogie's been to my venue before. That area is just perfect for an event, and it's very inexpensive. So that's my goal. But I'm excited for Excerpt, because they're toning it down, so it'll be easy for me to get into. And not, obviously you still need to put time in any game, but I'm really excited. I just pray it comes out on current gen systems, because watching it, it's that easily could be on Xbox or PlayStation 3. All right. We covered a lot. Let's go over a couple questions we got. Kugi, he gave me this answer earlier. Honest question from Spoko305. With the myriad of games out there, why should I invest time into Guilty Gear? What sets it apart or above the others?
It's a good game. I stick by that. It's a... Okay, so there's the ST of fighting games, or of Capcom games, right? And you can watch ST to this day, and it's a classic. It's never going away. There's dudes in Japan that still play this game every day after work, and they're 40 years old. They're grinding this game still. And I feel Guilty Gear is another one of those games where it's never going to go away. It's a classic. It has all the fun fundamentals of both Marvel and Street Fighter in one game. Minus assists, but there's some characters that have assists. But point being is that if you want to learn a fighting game, you can just learn Guilty Gear, and you can play any fighting game after that, I think.
Yeah, kind of like what Chaz was saying earlier about keeping up with the game and stuff like that. I feel from the fighting games that I've played, that Guilty Gear is the most rewarding. The work that you put into it, you definitely. So all those people out there that are lab rats, the training mode's really good. There's plenty of information out there to get it. So it's whatever work you want to put into the game, and kind of feel you just go to a tournament and get randomly 0-2'd. It's not really like that in Guilty Gear. If you put the work in, there's enough mechanics in there for you to save yourself. So I think that's what sets it apart. And what Kugi was saying is just good. Every character's diverse, it's balanced. The mechanics can seem overwhelming, but they're not necessarily there for no reason. So That's what I feel like is the most redeeming part about it.
Definitely, even though people talk about Guilty Gear and its complexity, they've been calling Guilty Gear like anime ST for like the longest, and for a good reason, because like what Alex said, like the work you put into it, you immediately see the results. Even if you lose, you understand exactly why you lost, and it's not like some other games out there where like you might lose and you like, I lost because of this stupid mechanic and it just screwed me over and it's so unfair, I shouldn't have lost that. And in Guilty Gear you understand why you win, you understand why you lost, and when you can understand the game from that, raw perspective, then it's easier to focus on your opponent and focus on the matchup. And it's when you don't have to give your attention, or you're not distracted by all these other things that are happening in the game and all these other mechanics in the game that are helping you win, maybe, or screwing you over when you should have won, getting outplayed when you really didn't. You get a chance to understand the core game for what it really is, and get the mental resources to concentrate on actually learning the game more and learning and paying attention to your opponent. It sounds weird, but when you don't have to worry about other crap or something that's BS happening to you, because there's definitely like BS moments in Guilty Gear. Like, oh my god, I got counter hit by this blah blah blah, and I got dizzied and I lost my life. But you know exactly why you got dizzy, because you know that 6P had like a 1.12 like dizzy modifier on it, and then ensuing combo destroyed you because your guard was jacked. So everything adds up, and once you understand that, then you can understand everything else, and then you can easily break down your opponent because you don't have to worry about the background, what's happening in the game.
Got it. Somebody in the chat asks, if they do want to get started in Guilty Gear, where should they go? I believe dustloop.com is the best place for all things Guilty Gear.
Dustloop.com, definitely the wiki.
The
wiki is amazing.
The wiki's really good.
They have hitbox frame data. They're updating it constantly. I mean, it's an amazing resource.
The Plus R wiki has the Guilty Bits introductory series done by Tataki, aka Norvril.
Those are really good videos, guys. Check out the Guilty Bits videos.
As each character is coming up, it's been updated to the wiki, so that video will be embedded in that character-specific wiki page. Everything related to gameplay systems on the wiki is there and is accurate. Like, I have a copy of the MOOC in front of me right now, and like everybody did their part in getting their characters accurate and as much information as possible, so you can just absorb it all and put it into practice as soon as possible. So that's definitely where you want to go. And if you have any questions, just hop onto the forums, Dustloop, and definitely get you started.
Yeah, I think all three of us are mods on there, so I mean, any character-specific stuff, like, I think that's another thing that kind of makes our community kind of special, is the fact that, like, the people that put the info into this game, like, really care about the game, and it ranges anywhere from people that are just, like, information rats, or people that actually play the game really well competitively, so you get solid information from a lot of different walks, so it's good.
And I just need to say, for the people who are kind of on the fence, like, there's like, oh, I have a PS3, but it's only on Japanese PSN. Dustloop Supermod Kurushi actually did a great write-up. It's on the Dustloop front page. It's called Importing 101 Tutorial, and it'll actually take you through all the steps if you want to import a copy of BlazBlue CP when it comes out. If you don't know how to do that, how to access Play Asia, if you want to create a Japanese PSN account, and how to get Japanese PSN cards from like Play Asia or PSN codes, then definitely check out Dustloop, the front page, and that tutorial will get you started. And Guilty Gear is 1,500 yen. That translates in, the yen is really weak right now, so it's really, you're paying the same amount of money if it came out in America, minus the extra you had to pay for the PSN card. So it'd be like $20 for Plus R if you have a PS3. Even if you have an American account, make a Japanese account. It'll hold your hand, take you step by step through it, and there's really no reason if you have a PS3 that you don't have access to Plus R right now.
Nice. Thunder Underpants asks, are there any good pad players? That's a good question. I've never seen a pad Guilty Gear player.
Zidane.
Oh, yeah. The Dane Elite.
Zidane.
Where's he from?
He's New York.
Latif.
New York City.
Latif is another good one.
Well,
We had started playing pad.
Yeah.
played on the analog.
Dude, no, I'm serious. Listen to this shit. All right, I'm serious. I want to tell you guys a story about Latif, real quick, just to go off topic. I was at work in my booth at, one of the SoCal events. It was the one with Clock versus Neo, right? Latif comes up to my booth. I haven't seen him in forever, and I'm like, Latif, how you been, man? We should play Guilty. He's like, oh, I got Guilty right here on my PSP. And I'm like, how? What? You can play on that? He's like, yeah. And he busts it out, and he does Eddie's triple unblockable right in front of me. First try.
God.
I mean, no warm up. Just bust it out. And I'm just like, what is
Yeah.
this?
What
Like,
the hell is this?
How did he just do that? He says that he goes to sleep playing Guilty Gear on the PSP. And he practices it in bed. I'm just like, this is too much. Like, so yeah, he's a pad player.
Yeah. There was also back in the day, there was Black Snake, but he transitioned to stick. Kenji. Juicy G.
Yeah.
Yeah. He threw that
man.
thing too. He threw those pads.
Those pads. I remember his
And
red
patio
PS1
furniture.
pad. Just
I remember that. I remember the story of that thing exploding.
I mean, guys, just play whatever you're comfortable on. So
Yeah. Guilty Gear is definitely a pad friendly game. Like, just put it out there. Like,
I would go to anime conventions, play it on a pad because they wouldn't let you bring your own. Well, it was hard to get sticks back then compared to today. But yeah, it was never bad as a pad game. So, what else? All right, we got one fun question. This is from Rora Noah Yolo. Okay.
Nice name.
Okay, it's Rora no Yolo. Sally sells seashells by the seashore. Okay, anyways, what is everyone's top 3 One Piece characters and why?
what the I don't read One Piece, so I don't know what the
All
hell that
right,
means.
you're out of the question. Kugi, do you know One Piece?
I don't really keep up with that. I watched like 50 episodes of the show, but I like Tony Chopper. He's pretty cool.
Nice. Oh my god, we haven't said weeboo once this whole show.
Well, that's okay. That's a
Do
step
people still
forward,
say
right?
that?
Did
No, I
somebody
mean-
say weeaboo?
Weeaboo, yeah. I haven't heard that in a while.
No, you ruined it.
Aw.
Yeah, thanks, Alex.
No problem. Who's your favorite waifu? Who would be your waifu?
My actual wife. The woman lying down next to me right now, I guess.
Oh.
She's still breathing, right?
Yeah.
Okay, just making sure.
I'll like whisper like Lychee. I'm like, yeah.
Take over.
Damn, don't die, man.
He's alive.
Every time I laugh the wrong way, dude, my cough comes back. Jesus.
Oh man.
I'm gonna die one day when somebody just tells me a joke I can't handle. Only one answer for the One Piece question? Yeah, guys, we don't watch it. Anyways, what else do we got?
Oh,
I think that about covers it, guys.
Just skip the man that watches one.
Oh, I'm sorry.
do.
Who's your waifu?
Oh, well, not my waifu, but One Piece. Like Crocodile. I like Crocodile.
He likes Crocodile from One
Yeah.
Piece.
He said top 3. You got 2 more.
Top 3. I don't even know a
I
character
have to
from
say
One Piece.
top 3. Oh, Jesus.
Follower, baby.
Is there like a pirate?
I just like Crocodile because he's got sand and stuff. I don't know.
There was a pirate.
That's an
Yeah, I
awkward
remember
question.
the treasure
I don't know
game,
what
the
that has to do
multiplayer
with
game.
anything.
Okay, what? Oh, JoJo's. Yeah, didn't that just get released in Japan? How's that going? It got like a
Wait.
perfect score in Famitsu.
Wait, it's
Yeah,
out.
I haven't seen gameplay yet though. I've seen like the stupid CPU matches, but I haven't seen actual people playing yet.
I believe it comes out either last week or this coming week.
29th, I think.
Okay, so Thursday it comes out in Japan. It got a high score. I mean, Famitsu's Famitsu these days, but yeah. So, all right. So, last question I'll ask for you guys: how excited are you for Excerpt on a scale of 1 to 10? Kugi,
Like,
4,000.
are you going to be playing it, or you're too busy being a businessman now?
I'm gonna quit my business and play Guilty Gear full time.
I'll sponsor you. How's that?
That sounds adequate.
Actually, when are you going to release your new Guilty Gear shirts? People keep asking in the chat.
I don't know. I'm trying to get them done. I have to get samples made before I launch them, so it's gonna be like 2 or 3 weeks. I might do some teasers. We'll see.
yo, Eno shirt?
Not this time, but soon.
Oh my Christ.
If you need me to model a shirt, man, you know I model your stuff all the time because they're actually really comfortable. Thank you, Kugi.
Yeah.
I still wear your class of 09 SRK shirt from Evo all the time. So yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I just said thank you.
Oh, you're welcome, sir. Thank you. Thank you for always supporting CEO and the rest of the community. And you'll be at Summer Jam next week, won't you? In 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
TFC, you mean the
what
Fall
did
Classic?
I said Summer Jam. I'm sorry.
You
Yeah,
said Summer
TFC.
Jam. It's okay. Yeah, I'm gonna try to go. We'll see.
Okay, cool. So all right, so that's the end of our show, guys. I'm going to give them the last few minutes to talk. T-Sac, would you like to say anything?
Really excited about Excerpt. I guess it's a 10 on my scale just because there's another Guilty Gear coming out. And then it'd be even better if Faust came out. So I just want to learn more about the game and just know like what mechanics don't work and whatnot.
Yeah, somebody did ask, the new designs, what do you guys think of the new designs of some of the characters they've shown, like Potemkin?
That is like the prettiest game I've ever seen in my
It
life.
looks so sick.
Oh my
Okay,
God.
so
It really looks sick.
Potemkin reminds me of Alphonse Elric from
Yes.
Full Metal Alchemist. He's one of my favorite characters of all time. So I am like triple hype for Potemkin because he's gonna Potemkin Buster you with dude, he looks evil. He's crazy.
Full armor.
Full armor, dude. Like the forward heavy when he just like punches you with the double fist. Like you should just explode when you get hit by that now.
Fatality.
Nice. So that's it from you? Thanks, buddy. T-Sac, by the way, we did he brought over Plus R 2 weeks ago, and we played a bit. You can go on my YouTube channel, CEO Gaming. If you want to learn the basics, he did a really great job running through all my questions as the first time. And when I pick up a game, I always ask the questions that I feel help me best compete right off the bat. So you should definitely check that out. Minus, thank you so much for coming on the show. Is there anything you'd like to say?
No problem. I just want to let everybody know Excerpt looks amazing, and literally I can't freaking wait. Like, I'm dying right now to just hear more information about the next look test coming up, if there is going to be one, but just want to let you guys know that just get Plus R and play Guilty Gear, because no matter what, Guilty Gear is always Guilty Gear, and you don't want to be waiting, and everybody's like, oh my god, Plus R is so amazing, and then get into it later, and then you get Omega Bopped.
Omega
Bopped by all the newbies who put in mad work, like SKD, who's putting in mad work and getting godlike. So definitely Guilty Gear is Guilty Gear, and Guilty Gear is amazing. So if you have any questions, like I play Eno exclusively, so if you have any questions about Eno, just hit me up. Kugi plays Eno amazingly. Alex plays Faust. There's so many people who will easily and happily answer your questions. So hit us up on Twitter or whatever you need to do. If you have questions about how to get the game, what you should start at, and character specific, whatever it is, but definitely don't be shy and get into Guilty Gear. That's what we're here for.
Minus, if Eno is somehow not in the next Guilty Gear and Excerpt, since you've always played her exclusively, who would you pick next?
Well, saying that is a lie, because in XX, in the first half of Reload, I played Bridget, but it took me that long to learn Eno. It took me a game and a half to learn Eno.
That sounds about right, actually.
Yeah. So I played Bridget, and then maybe 6 months into Bridget, I was simultaneously learning Eno. And it took me until the second half of Reload to be able to switch to Eno full time. But it's that rewarding, and you play that character, and you destroy people, and they can't block you. They just can't block you, and you destroy lives, and you actually make people scared to fight you in tournament, and it feels great. So
nice. Thank you, Kugi, as always, coming on and always supporting the scene. I know how much you love Guilty Gear, so what would you like to say to the crowd?
Play Guilty Gear. No excuses. No, it's too hard. I'm a Marvel player. I don't know how to do anything. I don't want to hear it. Just go pick up Faust or an easy character. I'm not saying that Faust is just brain dead easy or anything, but go learn an easy character, bop some people, play your scrubby friends, and just get into it. And there are so many people right now that are getting into Guilty Gear right this moment, and I get tons of messages where it's like, hey, how do I learn Eddie? And I'm like, here's the link, and I'll spend 30 minutes a day just replying to people with links to strategies that they can watch or to learn. And you'd be surprised at the amount of people that just want to learn it because it's a good game, and it's fun, and it's not that hard. The difficulty is a little bit overstated. Me and Chaz will talk about Eno taking 2.5 games to learn, but back then it did take that long because the character was not developed as well as she is now. And
we didn't have the resources.
Yeah, and we didn't understand some of the things that were going on. But now with YouTube, here's something that's crazy to me. We learned Guilty Gear in an age before YouTube. Think about that. How do you even find videos before YouTube? It's now if you want to find a video for Guilty Gear, you just go, I want to learn Cliff, #R, good to go. You're going to find your videos. And Yeah, man, it's so much easier than it used to be.
Yeah. Even like when I play people online, like on Xbox Live, I was playing this one Zappa player. He's like, "Oh, I've only been playing for 5 months," and like his skill level was insanely impressive. You know what I'm saying? So him and I messes back and forth a lot. You know, so it's like it's really not impossible to get good at the game. You just got to put work in. That's it.
Nice. All right,
Basically
guys.
it.
Well, sorry, Paul. Something else?
No, I just said that's basically it.
Oh,
Yeah.
cool. Well, thank you guys, honestly, for coming on. We were already getting tweets that people learned a lot about the scene and everything. So I'm excited for Excerpt. I hope it's on the current gen. If it's not, either way, I definitely plan to push it with CEO in Florida because I know everyone here is excited for it. But yeah, stay tuned, guys. Like I said, I'm trying to work on an event that's very cheap to travel out to, hopefully for some people, and just going to focus on these games that everyone loves in this community. And because there's always room for CEO, and there's always room for more, I think. Whose lightning is that? Who's having thunder?
Storms are coming on my end, man. It's
In Arizona, really? Wow.
well, it's monsoon season. Yeah, it looks like it's a haboob, which is like a big sandstorm.
Oof.
Yeah,
Nice.
it's kind of scary.
terrible.
I think that my my house
so
got hit by
bad.
lightning 4 times actually. So, yeah.
CEO got hit by lightning and shut off the power right as I came out in my Black Adam costume, dude. This is not a lie. So that was pretty funny. But all right, guys, thank you so much for tuning into the show. We'll be back next week with a topic I haven't figured out yet. But if there's anything you'd like to see, hit me up on Twitter. Hit up our guest, Coogie, please, also representing Broken Tier. Pay attention to his new line of clothes that are coming out. I believe you're going to unveil whatever you have besides Guilty Gear at TFC.
I'm sorry, I was looking at the lightning
Oh, yeah.
outside my window. But what were you saying?
You plan on releasing or showing off some new shirts around TFC time?
Yeah, I'm gonna try to release a huge collection. I mean, I've spent the last week and a half working nonstop on making new colors, new items, stickers, ridiculous amount of new items. So I hope to have a couple of Guilty Gear themed pieces. I'm not as inspired as I used to be with the fighting game scene, like, because, I mean, my position in it is as a sponsor and as someone who I have to look at the intricacies of, like, the relationships between players and how they interacted. So I get burned out a lot. So I try to take a break from things, and I'm actually going to release my first non-fighting game related shirt, which is going to be for 999, which is like one of my favorite games ever. It's a visual, I guess it's a visual horror novel for the DS.
Is it
It's
kind
kind
of
of
like
a-
Virtue's Last Reward?
It's actually it's the prequel to that.
Oh,
It's,
I've been playing Virtue's Last Reward on my Vita at work right now.
Yeah, and so 999 is one of my favorite games, so I'm going to release that shirt, and you just try to have fun with the brand. You know, it's not, it doesn't have to be serious. It doesn't have to be this like fighting game exclusive thing. It's a representation of my ideas. So I'm going to try to take it that way with it.
Good. Well,
So-
everyone in this community supports you no matter what you decide to do. So, again, thank you guys very much. Hit us up all on Twitter. The Guilty Gear knowledge is out there. Play Guilty Gear. It is a great game. The soundtrack alone should hook you when you're playing it. Thank you guys and have a great night. I'll talk to you guys soon.